biblical? Of course it is.
Read your Bible as interpreted by experts.
I think that view is headed for a deep mischief.
Just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Welcome to Mystery Bible Theater 3000. My name is Caleb Hegg. With me, of course, my lovely assistant, Rob Vanhoff. What's up, my dude? All right. Yeah. How's it going?
It's going really well. I got my new,
Yeah, you did.
What's it called? Dusty Rose color.
Yep.
Is this the Dusty Rose?
Looks good, man.
I'm loving it.
Nice. Yeah, we actually had multiple videos to choose from today, which is always nice. I like it when there's a selection. But I went with very short and sweet. Confused.
That's good.
Confused, but short and sweet. Before we jump in, if you want to send us a video to be watched on Mystery Bible Theater 3000, see Hegg at TorahResource.com. That's the email address. And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. You know, every time I say I think this one's going to be short, it's usually long. But this one might actually be a candidate for a short video. This is 29 seconds, and honestly, I don't know who clipped this. I don't know if the guy who's in the video clipped it. I don't know if somebody else clipped it. It's a little bit incoherent. However, I've watched it probably 5 or 6 times now, and I think I understand what he's saying. So there will need to be some clarification, I think. Rob has no clue what we're going to watch. He's never seen it, never heard it. He's going in fresh, guys. So let's kick over here, and let's take a listen. Here we go.
The Bible even says that blasphemy against God is the only thing you can do to not earn God's favor, to not get into heaven. You put yourself or you put something else in front of God. And I started to realize worshiping a human as God seems blasphemous to God. Christianity is not monotheistic. It's about an idol. It's about worshiping Jesus. Worshiping Jesus, to me, it's blasphemous because you're really worshiping yourself. You're worshiping another human, thinking that you can be perfect like the human. That does not make sense.
Okay, so there's a lot going on here. I think, number one,
That's
says
like a junk drawer. Like it reminds me, like in your garage, like I have like an old like tin can that had like beans in it or something.
Right.
And I rinsed it out, and it's full of like every time I come across like a nut or a little screw or
you just throw it on in there.
Or like a tack. It's like I just throw it in there, and it's like I have this like jar of things. Sometimes I'm like scrounging, I'm like dumping half on and like looking for like something. And then it's like, in the end, you know, I'm never going to use anything in that. But that guy's mind reminds me of like that.
So when he says this line,
can.
he says this line, it's like worshiping yourself. And I think what he means by that, I watched it numerous times to try to understand what he meant by that. I think what he means is if you're worshiping a human, like we're worshiping ourselves, we're worshiping humans, not God. I think that's what he means by that. Like when you worship a human, you're not.
So Jesus is not God.
Yes, and so claim. Yeah. So I think and I kind of want to listen to it one more time and let's stop it in the middle because we'll break it down here a little bit. Okay, let's listen one more time. And by the way, obviously this is part of a larger video. Now I wasn't sent the larger video. I don't know where the larger video is. Maybe there's more, but somebody clipped this, and I think it was probably him because it's a short. Anyway, not the point. Let's go.
The Bible even says that blasphemy against God is the only thing you can do to not earn God's favor.
First of all, we don't earn God's favor. So there's a misconception here that this young man has that
it's
somehow
already wrong.
Yeah, it's already wrong. Like we're gonna the idea is that we have to do certain things and we earn God's favor, and if we do all these things, we're going to earn God's favor, but like blasphemy and idolatry, which I think he's equating as the same thing, right? Blasphemy and idolatry, that's the only thing you can do to not earn God's favor. Well, we don't earn God's favor. So either God, either you're justified and you're coming to Christ, or you're not. You're not earning God's favor by doing good works. Now, once
strike one.
Once you're justified, sure enough, okay, now certainly there are things that please God and there are things that grieve God, and sin is one of those things that grieves God. So I'm not saying that there isn't things that God likes and doesn't like, but I'm not going to lose my salvation if I have salvation because of one thing or the other. Now, he is right, I would say. I'm trying to give as much grace here as possible with this guy. I think he's right in the idea of pretty much anything that we do sin-wise could in some way be construed as idolatry. In other words, we're putting ourselves first, we're putting another god first, maybe we're putting money first, maybe we're putting sexuality first. Okay, so putting other things in front of God, could we say that it's blasphemy? Okay, possibly.
So if we want to classify all sin as at its root idolatrous,
yeah, then okay. But I think that really what's happening here is he's just trying to work out the idea of the deity of Christ.
Yeah.
Something people have been trying to do literally since Christ was on earth, and even before then. The question of whether or not the Messiah would be divine or not, I think, was something that was struggled with even before the coming of the Messiah. And we see the pre-incarnation. I believe we see the pre-incarnation of Christ. And Paul tells us that, right? The rock that went with Israel was Christ. Anyway, let's keep going. So we're only 6 seconds in. We've already found a major flaw in the theological perspective here. Let's keep going.
Not get into heaven. You put yourself or you put something else in front of God. And I started to realize worshiping a human as God seems blasphemous to God.
Okay, so worshiping a human as God seems blasphemous to God. So once again, I think that we could start in a lot of different places here. And correct me if I'm wrong. Which place do you want to start here? I would say that throughout the Torah, and the Torah is the first revelation given to mankind from God. Throughout the Torah, we have, even at the giving of the Torah, right? The 70 elders of Israel are chosen by Moses. They go up and they see the God of Israel, and then they worship him, right? So, I agree that worshiping a human, if we just worship a human, this is idolatry. The question that needs to be asked to this young man is Yeshua just a human? Is he just an average human like anyone else? And I think that this is where he's really getting hung up. Thoughts on that point?
Well, I'm thinking about that very passage. Is that Exodus 24? Mm-hmm. Where and elsewhere, like let me just pull like Isaiah 6, right? Mm-hmm. It says, "In the year of King Uzziah's death, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne." Okay, so what is the idea now? Granted, some of the imagery of God having a hand, like with an outstretched arm, with a mighty hand, God delivered Israel from Egypt. So you'd say, okay, are we supposed to literally imagine
a hand,
like a giant hand coming out of, right? I don't think so. However, in these places like this in Exodus 24, I think it says that under his feet was a sea of like sapphire. I'm like, some of these places, I don't think we should be so quick to say, oh, that's idiomatic. That's just the same as an outstretched arm.
Jacob wrestles with God, right?
Yeah. So we see. Yeah. So anyway, that's just a side thought. That what would I would imagine he's going to say, oh, yeah, they worshipped Exodus 24. I agree with you. They worshipped, if he even accepts the Torah. I mean, does this guy even accept the Bible? I don't know. But
this is
the Old Testament. I don't know. Like
these kind of TikTok and YouTube video shorts where you have, and God bless them, you have these people who are trying to work out their faith, right? They're trying to figure it out. And the unfortunate part is, I think a lot of theology. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some great theology on the internet. There is some fantastic theology. I have been greatly impacted by the ability to watch sermons by people like R.C. Sproul or John Piper or MacArthur, or the list goes on. Alistair Begg. The list goes on, right? And I'm not saying that these men, I agree with them fully on theology. Obviously, I don't. But the point is that there is some great theology on the internet. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of people who make these shorts, they haven't found it yet. It's like drive-by theology, and what I mean by that is, you think of an idea, oh man, we're not allowed to worship humans. Thus, to worship Jesus would be blasphemy, okay? Now, just as a drive-by theological point, it's like, wow, okay, yeah, maybe that's right. Yeah, okay. But the thing is you have to take into account a huge amount of theology and a huge amount of history and biblical hermeneutics that go into it as well. If we're not, so I agree, no one, like, how do we reconcile the idea of no one can see God and live? Right? But at the same time, throughout the Torah, we have God showing up in human form and people not dying. So there has to be some kind of a theological explanation. And the same theological explanation has to spill out into the rest of our theology. And so this kind of drive-by theology is not helpful. And the reason why is because it doesn't take into account a huge amount of thought that goes into it. And so this is like...
It's like a drive-by shooting. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like, that's not even... It's like, I just want to go, I want to take my words as like bullets, and I'm just going to fire off a bunch of stuff that will certainly offend a bunch of Christians, and because I want some shock value, or I want to kind of like cause some terror. I mean,
I don't think that's it. I mean, from the video, it's, and now granted, maybe it's clickbait, maybe he's just trying to get more views, but I don't think that. I think that there is a genuine, he's like aha-ing himself, like, oh my word, aha, I had these moments. But that's how he comes across. Now I could be wrong, but the point is that once again, I just think that there is a significant amount of thought and theological process, philosophizing, I suppose you could say, about the Bible that has not been taken into consideration. And I think to be able to have really helpful conversations about the deity of Christ and what it means to be saved and how we are saved by Christ. And that, I mean, he touches on this at the end of his 29-second video, the idea of like, well, we're trying to be perfect like another human. We're not trying to be perfect like another human.
Exactly, another strike.
Another, and let's just listen to it. I rolled it back 2 seconds, and let's just listen to the end of this video here.
Blasphemous to God. Christianity is not monotheistic. It's about an idol. It's about worshiping Jesus. Worshiping Jesus, to me, it's blasphemous because you're really worshiping yourself. You're worshiping a...
And I think what he means by that, I'll give him grace on this. I think what he means by that is you're just worshiping a human. So when he says yourself, I think what he means is like humankind. So we'll give him grace on that. Not that I agree with that point, obviously, but I understand what he's saying.
Help him think this through.
Right.
This is like a crappy first draft, like of a junior high writing project. And it's just like, okay, you got some ideas on the page.
Right.
Now go back.
But okay,
read the Bible. Read a little more carefully.
Right. In his last
some sources, come back again with another draft.
In his last 8 seconds, I think he shifts from deity to salvation, like soteriology, the idea of how a person is saved, and I think that he misses the mark on this 100% as well. Let's keep going.
Really worshiping yourself. You're worshiping another human, thinking that you can be perfect like the human.
Okay, once again, I think that this misses I think one of the biggest problems that we have here is a misunderstanding of soteriology in general. How is it that Christ can save us? Well, Christ can only save us because he is divine. In other words, you cannot have, if he was just another human.
He's outside the problem.
He's outside the problem. And if he was just another human.
He's not part of the problem. He's outside.
Right.
He's the firefighter. Like there's a house that's burning down full of people. He's like, okay, I know what it takes to go in. I know what the problem is. He knows what the problem is, but he's not part of the problem. He's outside of it, and he knows how to go in, rescue, and come back out. That's simple. And this guy doesn't get that.
And he has infinite life because he is God. He is eternal in both directions, which means that for him to die and I know that this is a problematic statement, but I use it a lot. For him to die is an infinite death. To diminish an infinite life and to kill an infinite life is a quote unquote infinite death. That's my term, infinite death. Okay. Now I know that there's theological issues with the term infinite death, but the point in trying to use that is that if you had another human who was created at some point, his life is not infinite. And therefore, for him to die, he might be able to cover one person's one sin. But when you have a person whose life is infinite, that is, i.e. God, the only person who is infinite, in both directions, when he dies, the death covers all sin and all for any person who accepts it. Okay?
Yeah, that's like in Hebrews where it says he tasted death for all. I mean, it's like it's such a poetic way of putting it, but it's theologically true, you know.
And we're not trying to be perfect like Christ. In fact,
exactly. That's the whole point. Is that we're not.
A person who comes to Christ comes to Christ because they realize they cannot be perfect like Christ, and that they are not able to do that on their own. What they have to do is they have to accept the work that the only one who is perfect has done, and that is Yeshua himself. So, I hope that somebody sees this. If you're confused about salvation, as this young man clearly is, then I hope that you see this, and we've started to get some thought going. Shoot us an email, chegg@TorahResource.com. I'd love to talk to you more about salvation and the way that this works. But this young man doesn't understand it. And I feel bad for him for that. Ultimately, this is
Christ's death is I like the infinitive or infinite. What did you call it?
Infinite death.
Christ's death is incalculable in its cost because my sin alone. So he died for my personal sins. He died for your personal sins. Okay, and the cost of those, and. I mean, Paul puts it simply, and he just describes it. The wages of sin is death, right? I mean, that's from the garden. We know that from the garden, wages of sin is death. But when you multiply the cost of the sins of all the redeemed, I mean, it's beyond a man can't count. Just like Abraham can't count the stars. I mean, count the sins that the Messiah died for. And so I'm not against that phrase that you use, but I know what you mean. There's going to be some hardcore theologians that are going to refine that a little bit or take you to task.
I have argued before that one sin that I have committed diminishes the infinite holiness of God, and
it's an offense to God's.
It's holiness, It's an infinite offense, though. To diminish holiness that is infinite is itself an infinite offense. You cannot be calculated. And so the only way that you can deal with one sin is with an infinite life. And I mean, we're talking about
it's pretty cool. What Jesus did.
All right.
It's pretty cool.
We're not going to keep bashing this guy. I feel bad for him actually. And if somehow the Lord brings this young man to see this video, please feel free to contact us. I'd be happy to chat with you or anyone else about the God's way of salvation and how all of these theological points with the deity of Christ, the virgin birth, soteriology in general, justification by faith alone, all these things work into our salvation. And I think they're all vitally important to understand how it is that we as human beings can be saved through the death, resurrection, and ascension of Christ. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back next week for another Mystery Bible Theater 3000. If you're watching this, then I hope on the day that it comes out, then I hope you had a great 4th of July and that you were nice and safe. We will, we'll be back. By the way, I'm going to give you my email address one more time, chegg@TorahResource.com, chegg@TorahResource.com. That's how you can get a hold of us and talk to us about things like salvation. Thanks so much. We'll see you in the next video.